All right, let's welcome in our man Ty Harrington. Let's talk some ball. Ty Harrington, he was 20 years the manager at Texas State, of course. Lifetime Longhorn. He's been to the NCAA tournament as a coach and a player many, many times, and it starts today. T.Y., how are you? Want to talk some ball?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. And good morning to everybody. It is. I think I heard you say it's like Christmas morning for college baseball, and it's pretty close. I mean, it is. There's so much. It's the beginning of a lot of goals and a lot of teams that set out to be a part of the NCAA tournament. And today's it. And I mean, it gets cranked up pretty early. Also, I heard you talk about somebody was already going to pop their first beer in about 4 hours, that tells you the excitement of it. I'm like, what is he waiting for now? I mean, he's already on his mind and he's already getting set up. So, it's crazy. What's interesting is if, like for the Texas game, that's a noon game, I'll give, people some insight to the players will start getting there at 8:30 in the morning. You start getting there, get prepared, whether, you've got some work doing with your trainers, and so those guys will start rolling up there pretty quick as well.
We had this debate and question. People asked us this week, why would Texas choose the noon game? Why would you choose the early game if you're the one seed? What's the reasoning behind that? It's happening across the country where the one seeds want to play this first game. What's the idea behind that from the manager side?
It makes perfect sense. I mean, we've done it multiple times. I know Slosh has done that a couple of times as well. You get more rest, and you're at home, so you're sleeping in your bed, your routine. You know where you're going. You know how to get there. There's a lot to it. It's a little more confusing for the teams coming in and flying in. But the biggest thing is you're playing at noon today. You're done at 3:30. So 3:30 this afternoon, you're going to be done. Hopefully you think and you plan on winning. You've got a lot of rest before the next game comes back around. What happens often, like the Texas State game, for example, the 8 o'clock game, but that's late.
Yeah.
The earliest you're going to be done is 11:30. And so when you start thinking about, unwinding at 11:30, those players, then the losers got to flip back around and play fairly early the next day. You start really getting sandwiched in on time, rest, and a lot of different things. And remember, it's not just about today. It's about the next 2 days for sure, maybe 3. And so just trying to strategize, trying to get every bit of advantage that you can get while you've earned that, right? By being in your ballpark, by winning, by doing all those things. You want to take advantage of it. What you don't want to do is play a late game, and then all of a sudden, something goofy happens, you get beat, and you got to flip around and play early again the next day. And so I like it. I think it's a perfect scenario for teams that are trying to win a tournament to grab some extra rest in between games.
And I've heard you say that many times about these regionals. You're not trying to win a game, you're trying to win a tournament. And so it's strategy for the long haul here to play the early game today. That'll pay dividends long haul. And the way Austin, Texas is, it'll be cooler at noon than it will be when the other two teams play at 5 o'clock today in the heat of the afternoon. But real quick, Ty, I wanted to mention here as we talk some ball, the ESPN PR put out yesterday. It's something we've talked about a lot here on our podcast and on the radio show, that the appetite for college baseball has never been greater. You've been around it your whole life. But ESPN PR put out that this year they had a plus 49% year-over-year viewership growth on the app and on the ESPN channels. 1.1 billion minutes of game coverage consumed by consumers this year in college baseball, and almost up 50% year over year. That speaks to what you are sensing and seeing, and what we're watching. It's a higher level of baseball. The players are more veteran, and players are staying in college baseball to get developed while they can get a full scholarship and make some NIL dollars. But that's pretty significant, up 49% year over year.
Yeah, I'm not surprised one bit. I mean, we talk about it often. You could see it coming. People channel surf ESPN on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesdays. I mean, they're just because when college baseball's playing, and the thing that's got to be discussed is how do you monetize all that? How do you go out and create that avenue of revenue for colleges that we all know, we talk about it every day. You're talking about rev share, you're talking about all these different things, and how does that come about? I'm not surprised, right? I mean, what the growth of the game has been. You're not either. We're not, the fans of college baseball are not. If you would have been in the beginning of this in the 80s and 90s where you had limited exposure on television to be able to watch something you might like, you had to go to the games. You didn't have the luxury of popping a beer, at 9 o'clock in the morning and sitting at home with your feet propped up in your chair watching games all day. You didn't have that advantage. Now you do. And so I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised people at work today, they're going to be watching the games. You go walk by somebody's cubicle today in their office, they're going to have the doors shut. And if you can see a reflection in there, they're going to have their Apple, computer on with their TV and watching baseball games. So all that to say, I'm not surprised at the growth of 50% of, from year over year. What they've got to discover is the collision of basketball, and it's not, I don't mean it that way, but the crowdedness of basketball and college baseball in February and March. You got to figure out how to navigate through that where the viewership, becomes, you give everybody the option. But look, the channel surfing that I do, you've heard me say it 100 times, and I'm guilty of saying, hey, I got to turn on my quad box today.
Yeah.
I got to have two of them. I got to have two of them to watch the games and to keep up with what's going on. It's here. It's been here. I think there's been some network getting late to this and recognizing the growth of it. Again, that may be my want. That may be something that I personally am, emotionally attached to in college baseball and its growth. But it's here. And today's going to be as great. This weekend is going to be just as great of an example of it as you can imagine. And then all the way to you watch tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPNU. Texas State plays tonight, plays USC. And when they get a chance and you look at the viewership of what that game's going to be late on a Friday night, where everybody's got chances to go downtown, go do whatever they're going to do, you watch the numbers are going to be ridiculous on that game tonight, even that late.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, we've got 4 games start at 11, 4 more at noon, 3 more at 1 o'clock. So by 1:30 this afternoon, you'll have 15, 16 games going at one time at all the regions across the country. It's going to be tremendous, including the Longhorns at 11 o'clock at noon today against Holy Cross. They'll also go at 11 in, we're calling it May Madness. We're calling it May Madness. Here it comes. May Madness in college baseball with 32 games across today's 16 regional sites. What do you make of UCSB? You talked about them earlier this week, but the announcement's been made. They're not going to go with their ace. Texas is going with Luke Harrison today against Holy Cross. And Jackson Flora, the game's best pitcher, 11-0 with an ERA of 1.05 for UCSB, will not pitch today against Tarleton. They're going to roll the dice and see if they can beat Tarleton with their number 2. And that could set up if both are able to win today. You'd get Dylan Volantis B. Jackson Flora tomorrow in a winner's bracket game. That would be something. But what do you make of the manager's decision?
Now, again, we talked about this. You're trying to win the tournament, not just today. You're trying to win it. And every once in a while, you have to roll the dice a little bit, and I think it is. Not necessarily as much for Texas as it is for UCSB. Tarleton's a pretty offensive team. They've played this ballpark, so they have an understanding of what it's like to play in this park. But I think it was something that they needed to do to try to win the tournament. If in fact it rolls out the way it does, you imagine the number of eyeballs that are going to be on that game tomorrow with Flora and Volantis, 2 of the best pitchers in the country. And what that's going to look like, and the people watching that game, and the intensity of that game, and the possibilities of what that could look like would be, exciting for college baseball, but certainly for the regional. All that to say, yes, every once in a while you got to roll the dice. I think the biggest roll of the dice is obviously that UCSB is going to go to a guy that's really been their third guy off and on, and doesn't have a ton of innings in. Like some of the other guys, but as of late was one of their better pitchers. And you dig in, you look at his ERA, I think it's like a 2.35 or something like that. Well, that's pretty good. And it's not like they're running a guy out there that's terrible. So it'll be interesting. You're seeing that around the country. I know USC is doing the same thing against Texas State. I think you're rolling the dice with that a little bit more because Texas State's a little more offensive. And the Aggie ballpark sets up well for Texas State offensively with that south wind blowing out the left field. And they're, a homer-oriented team. So you're seeing that around the country where teams are starting to do that. And, you're in it to win the tournament. That's it. I mean, you're in this tournament to get to the next one. That's what it is. You made the tournament. You made the NCAA tournament. You made it. Now the next move is, how do I get to the next piece of it?
Well, that's got to be the strategy for all these teams. So, go with your number 2 or 3 and then see if you can get it. Tell our audience, because, for Texas, Jim Schloss-Nagel's going with Luke Harrison. He did say Ruger Riojas. The week of rest has been great for him. He'll be ready to go when called upon. Ethan Mendoza you're going to see him as a DH this weekend. Looks like with the shoulder injury, he'll be able to swing the bat, but not play the field. So they're going to have to shuffle the deck a little bit there into the weekend. I thought that was interesting. But tell us about the coach at Tarleton State. Tarleton in this thing for the first time. Pretty awesome for that program, and I know you know him. He's a rising star.
Yeah, Fuller's a great person, too, and a great baseball mind. When I first was around him, he was an assistant coach at UT Arlington, and he's that guy when even as a head coach, you meet different assistant coaches, or you should, throughout the year to always keep a short list of what your needs may be, and you're always watching, what the other teams do well. You talk to other head coaches, and he was a rising star back then when he was with Darren Thomas, and you just keep an eye on him, and I've had multiple conversations throughout, the last couple of years when he got there about different things on, coaching and, the building a program, and he is a rising star. He's crazy smart. He's a reactive person to his thoughts. A lot of us have great thoughts, but don't always react on them. He does. I think if you watch his offense, his offense is created off of what the game gives him and what that moment gives him. He's willing to do it. He doesn't just sit in there and just, make his offense take swings. They'll bunt. They'll do different things to try to score runs, and they'll take advantage of where they are in their order and who their personnel is. And so, and he's not afraid. What I mean by that, he's not afraid to make a decision. He's not afraid to put the people he thinks fit in that situation, regardless if it doesn't look right to everybody else. Yeah. And so I appreciate that from a coaching's perspective. And you watch him; he's built a good program out there. They'll play. Look, they won't be afraid of this moment. I just don't think they will be. I would be totally shocked. They've been in this ballpark before. They've won in this ballpark before, and so a lot of that comes out of his personality.
Fuller Smith, the third-year head coach at Tarleton State. The Texans are in this tournament, and yeah, they won a ball game on this field this year against Texas. Part of the reason they're in this tournament, and as a three seed, they will play UCSB later in Game 2. That'll be about 5 o'clock. Texas and Holy Cross in the first game. Down in College Station, they're going to go at 3 o'clock, and as you said, 8 o'clock tonight. We are going to talk to Steve Trout, the head coach at Texas State, later in the program. But that's a tough matchup. What about the Aggies? And then their opportunity, trying to get healthy with Michael Early, the host. They'll play Lamar in the early game today. That's a fun regional. I know Aggies weren't really happy with the draw, I'm sure.
No, it's a great regional. It's an exciting regional. And yeah, look, you hear people talk about one regional is harder than another, and that does happen. That's just the way it is. And historically, if you're one of the higher seeds, your regional is not as hard. Your your 2 seed won't be as intense. And then probably as importantly, your 3 seed won't be as intense. Well, they've got a great draw in College Station. A tough draw in College Station. And, thank you, TV, for the 3 o'clock, 8 o'clock, right? Everywhere talking about the popularity of it, and people are complaining about it. Look, it is what it is. They're trying to get as many eyes on there by switching the times. But going back to the series and the turn, for the Aggies, it's about their pitching and their health. Sims and Cedillo hasn't been great down the stretch. And so I think it's about how well they throw the baseball. We all know they're offensive. Look, they're going to score runs. If something happens and they don't score more than 5 in a game, then you're going, they're going to have to pitch below that umbrella. That makes it tough on them sometimes. And so I do look. Their offense has had a little rest. They were banged up. I think somebody told me this may be the first time they've had their original lineup out there in a long time.
Yeah.
Going into this weekend, so that'll be a help for them and their energy and their bats and their barrels. All these teams, I think you and I talked about this the other day. These teams now have some energy in their barrels, and their top hands are working, and your barrels start to droop a little bit and get a little bit lackadaisical as the year goes on because your bodies get tired. But I think their offense is in a great position. To me, it's about their starting pitching, and then what is their what does it look for them going into the bullpen when it gets to the 7th? If they get there with their starters, they haven't been able to get some great length out of some of their starters this year, so it'll be exciting. But now USC, on the other hand, can pitch. I mean, they went at the beginning of the year, they weren't letting go of any runs. The first third of the season, they were throwing shutouts left and right, and then they went through a patch where they gave up some beginning of conference, and they were giving up a lot of runs for their standards, and then they came back the last third of the season, their offense got going. So a really good offense, a really good complete baseball team. You'll see that they do just about everything, a typical West Coast team, and how they do things, which, you'll see some from UCSB too, and how they play offensively. But it is a tremendous, regional and College Station. Lamar's good. Their coach is leaving at the end of the regional, or when they get eliminated, to be the head coach at U of H, which the timing of that, it's always kind of goofy. But it sounded like their players were okay with it. If you watch some of the interviews and you listen to them, and so they were, okay with the whole idea. They were just kind of happy to be in this regional and get that opportunity, and they're taking it on that way. And they're pretty good. I got to be honest with you. If you watch them closely, they've got 3 hitters in that lineup. They're really qualified hitters. And so it'll be exciting to watch it in College Station.
No question. And Texas and Texas A&M, 2 of the 12 SEC teams in action today, which is pretty incredible. 5 of the top 8 are in action today, and then the 7 hosts of the 12 teams that made the tournament. And I know a team like North Carolina, not too happy to see Tennessee rolling into their region and Arkansas rolling into Kansas. They're like, what are we doing now? Can we get one of these other teams? But that's the way it plays out today with the field of 64. Ty, thanks, man. We appreciate it. Always great talking ball, and enjoy the quad box, enjoy the coldies if you choose, and enjoy all the baseball this weekend. Can't wait to talk about it next week.
There'll be a bunch of it. Everybody enjoy it.
There you go. There's Ty Harrington talking ball. That's what it's all about. We are joined by the 7th-year head baseball coach at Texas State University. He is Steve Trout. Coach, how are you? Congratulations on making the field of 64.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Good morning to you. You kind of wake up on these days, kind of feels like Christmas or opening day and all the above all over again. And so really fired up to get to 8 o'clock, a little past my bedtime, but I think I'll be okay to get some energy tonight. But we're just excited to be in the field of 64. I'm excited to take on a really good USC team, and just excited to watch my guys get up there and get after it tonight.
So will you and you specifically, or your team, you going to be watching games all day today? How do you handle a game that won't happen and there's a game starting at 11 o'clock? Will you be paying attention, or are you going to lock in on your ball club?
Oh, yeah. I'll definitely have it in the background. Obviously, a lot of video to watch on USC and getting ready, but we've done that the last couple of days. So today's just kind of the final prep of watching small things. And then, obviously with the 8 o'clock start, there's a lot of downtime. We'll actually go lift today at 12 and get in the weight room, but in the meantime, watch games. And I'm just a college baseball fan in general. So anytime I can watch other coaches sweat it out while I get to sit back and watch, I enjoy that. But yeah, just love watching the game. And this is the best time of year.
No doubt. Steve Trout. I want to get to your team because it's been kind of a roller coaster of a season for you guys, ups, downs, injuries. But, man, your team battles, and that's why they're in this field, and that's exciting. But for folks who don't know, you played and coached under Jim Schlossnagle at TCU, played at TCU with him, and then started as a volunteer assistant there. For Texas fans, and Jim Schlossnagle now at Texas, obviously, somebody you're close to, why do you think Schloss, what do you take from Schloss that you still employ in your managerial style? And why do you think his coaching tree is so robust? I mean, you're just one of many that have played or coached under him. What do you think it is, and for our fans out there with Coach Schlossnagle?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, I think the best head coaches out there hire the best assistants, and you just talked about it there. His coaching tree of all the great assistants underneath him that have been head coaches and all the above. I think he does a great job of hiring the right people. Something I've taken a lot of pride in of hiring the right people and giving them ownership of their area, right? And so I think if you're trying to, dip into every side of the baseball and strength and conditioning and everything as a head coach, you're going to get lost, especially in this day and age where you're trying to raise so much money and NIL and everything you have on the table. And so you got to hire people you trust, and you got to hire people at the highest level. And I think I've done that, obviously with my staff, but he's done a great job of that in every stop along the way. And then you put your team, just in a great schedule, daily, weekly, monthly, over the whole year to be ready for baseball right now. And so, you kind of oversee that and just put an awesome schedule together to allow those guys to be rested, be healthy, but also be sharp as well. And so it takes a lot of time management to figure that out. And you figure it out throughout the years. And every team's different too, right? Some teams need a little bit more, some teams need a little bit less, and having that pulse of your team. And then I think the last thing he does a phenomenal job with is, we've both worked with Brian Kane, who's our mental game coach, for a really long time, and just being mentally tough teams, and talk about being in the present moment and playing pitch to pitch is obviously, you hear that all the time, but you truly live it out with how you just go about your day and go about baseball. Baseball is a tough sport. You're going to have failures, but how you kind of look at it and how your viewpoint of it is key. And so our job is to make our guys as confident as they can when they walk in the mound or walk in the box. And I think that's our job as coaches, especially at this time now, right? We're not tinkering with a lot of swings. It's more about getting them in the right frame of mind. And so he's done all those things for a long period of time, has been very consistent. Obviously recruits at a very high level. And like you said, I try to take that into my program as well. And so, yeah, it's been fun to watch Jim over the years.
No doubt. And 2 matchups with Texas this year, and then a couple with A&M, who you're down there in that College Station Regional. Steve Trout is with us, head coach at Texas State, the 3 seed down there with USC, the 2, and Lamar. Roster building in this day and age, Steve. I know your team, you went in, you leaned into some young guys out of high school to go with some older guys. I mean, take our audience behind the scenes these days of just how challenging it is. There's advantages to the portal. You can find players. There's NIL available to young guys as well. You played the game and coached the game through before all this. What's different, and what is in your mind the best strategy to build a roster?
Yeah, I think in this day and age, you got to be able to adapt. And I think when you're stuck in the old school ways, you're going to get lost in this game really fast. And so, you're still working through it. I think every year is a little different of what your needs are out of the portal. For us at Texas State, we're going to lean into really good high school recruiting. And I think, with now, and I get it, right? You can go find a guy that's, already hit 350 at another school at the D1 level. It probably makes more sense in different areas. And maybe we eventually get to that point. But right now, we really just dive in to find these really good high school players that I think now that are even out there more because some teams are going more portal. And so, you look at, in our starting lineup, we usually have 2 to 3 freshmen. Clayton Nampkins caught almost every game for the last 2 months. Behind the plate and just getting a ton of reps. Wade Cooper's been our Friday night guy. And so we get a lot of freshmen that step in right away and have an impact. We've always grabbed a couple of junior college guys every single year just to keep your roster a little bit older, have some guys that have, had at bats and have innings. And then the portal, it's just kind of, you look at it and you go, okay, what's our need? And that's the last kind of step for us to try to figure out what's the needs for the personnel heading into the next season. For this past year, we actually grabbed 3 D2 guys. They had the new Pavia waiver that came to the D2 guys where they were ineligible D2-wise and out of time, but they got 1 year back for D1. And so we grabbed 3 of those guys. One of those guys is starting on the mound for tonight, Ryan Marquardt. And so to me, I think you got to have, a combination of young just to build your program and keep your culture going. And I think you got to, find your guys through the portal that can come help you right away. And so, like I said, as this continues on with more NIL and more rev share and all the above, you'll see how the portal works through it. But our number one goal is to find really good high school players. And then most importantly, whenever our season's done this year, is to retain those guys. And I think that's the best recruiting I can do is to retain these really good freshmen and sophomores and young players in our program and make sure they're happy at Texas State and take care of them here at Texas State to make sure they remain Bobcats.
Especially with the idea that next year they'll be playing in the Pac-12, which is pretty exciting. As you guys wrapped up your Sun Belt tournament this past weekend and are in the tournament with those 2 wins, they maybe secured the spot, App State, and then that'll be a huge win and the comeback over Louisiana. And you talked about mentally tough teams and mental coaches. And boy, watching your team this year, Coach, I've been down to San Marcos several times to watch your guys live, and 36-24, 16-14 in Sun Belt play. But, man, there were some times where you guys looked like you could beat anybody. Then there were some stretches where, because of some injuries, things started to slide. I'm assuming, and I won't put words in your mouth, but you got to feel like you're pretty proud of these guys because they have fought to the end to get themselves into this tournament and give themselves a chance starting tonight.
Yeah, it's been a very streaky team. We went through streaks early. We were really good. Went through a couple streaks there in the middle, weren't as good. Went through a really tough stretch there with, one who we were playing as well with, Southern Miss and Troy and Coastal Carolina, Louisiana, South, all those teams that are obviously in the tournament as well. And so we were battling like crazy a lot on the road. You always deal with injuries like everybody else. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of this group of just sticking together. And that's all we preach all the time is when adversity hits and we prep it to day one, how you respond is the definition of, your character, your culture of what you're about. And to me, that's what mental toughness is. And, when things are going good, it's really easy to be tough. It's when things are not going your way, that's when your true character comes out. And so for us, that's what we prep all the time. And I've been more proud of my staff of, helping me hold this thing together and keep them going in the right direction. And then most importantly, obviously the seniors, the leaders, even some of those young guys who are now leaders for us, they just kept playing, you know what? We're going to find a way to get this thing done. And they just kept fighting. They kept working. Very professional group, and they go to work every single day. And it's paid out for them over the last 9 months because that opportunity tonight and this weekend to get after it.
And tonight is the last game of the day, I think, is yours. And there's a game at the Nebraska-Lincoln regional as well at 8 o'clock. So you get the TV 8 o'clock start, which will make for a late night and a quick turnaround potentially tomorrow. But what is the USC Trojans? I mean, this is a really good ball club. And I know you, as you said, you're a college baseball fan first, and you know the Trojans, you know their history, what that program's all about, what West Coast baseball is all about. This is a huge challenge you guys face with a really good USC team tonight. What's the video tell you?
Yeah, I mean, number one is obviously you got to look at their pitching staff. Sean Allen, who obviously was at Texas for a while, is leading the charge on the pitching side. They do a great job. They really got two starters, two aces. We're getting the righty tonight, and they're playing, I think, the matchup a little bit more with our lineup. And obviously he's 92 to 94. He's got 3 different breaking balls and a changeup, and I think he's 10-2. And so, they got a 3-something ERA as a team, and so they pitch and play unbelievable defense. That's their MO of how they win baseball games. They've got some power in their lineup, and they're going to find ways to score runs that way as well and play some small ball. But they're gonna live with their pitching and defense. So to me, it's kind of the clash of their pitching versus obviously our power lineup. And so we've hit 111 long balls this year. Obviously we got the slogan Slam Marcus. So I think it's going to be a little Slam Marcus versus some pitching. And so it's going to be a good battle. I'm excited. A&M's field plays exactly like our ballpark in San Marcos. And so it's set up the same way with the wind. Obviously we're comfortable with it. And hopefully we can make tonight a home game with a bunch of Bobcat fans in the stands. But you're exactly right. It's going to be, at this time of year, it doesn't matter who you play. It's going to be a challenge for everybody. But, yeah, I thought USC was one of those teams that they were right on the cusp of hosting. And so, obviously, now they're a 2 seed. And so I'm sure they're, excited to prove that wrong as well. But yeah, it's going to be a big-time battle. But at the end of the day, it's just about winning pitches, right? Doesn't matter what the ERAs are, the averages are. You're kind of all to a clean slate. And the team that wins the most pitches tonight is going to find a way to win a baseball game.
Steve Trout, Texas State and USC tonight. Texas A&M will play the early game at 3 o'clock today against Lamar, whose coach is heading over to the University of Houston. So that'll be an interesting subplot. A lot going on down there. And you mentioned something just now, Coach, that I want to wrap up with this. I mean, you just said it. I mean, because A&M's playing early, you could, there'd be access for your fans to get down there from San Marcos and Houston to come up and give yourself a good home field advantage. And you've played in that ballpark. You've won in that ballpark. And it does play like, the Bobcat ballpark in San Marcos with the wind and the kind of the proximity. That's got to be, a comforting thing for your guys when they hit the field tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know where you're stretching, you know where you're hitting, the grounds, what the wind's going to do, and you've had success on the field before. And so to me, there's a lot of things. Mentally, our guys walk in and have that. And then I think, like I said, you can look up tonight, and I think it's going to be a pretty, rowdy crowd of a lot of Bobcat Nation showing up and getting after. A lot of former players, a lot of alumni, all the above. So they're obviously really excited. A couple years ago we got sent to Stanford, and I was excited for that team because I felt like that was just kind of a good deep breath of a team that was really good, and maybe go play guys they had no idea who their names were. I think for this team, I think it's important being in the great state of Texas and having a chance to have our fans out there behind us to keep this thing going. Because if we can get hot and play at the right time, I told them the other day on Wednesday, I said, hey, we're 10 wins away from winning a national championship. And they kind of all looked at me like, whoa, I've never thought of it that way. I'm like, that's how close we are, because we're in the dance, which is our number one goal to get in the dance. But it all starts about just going 1-0 tonight. So really fired up for it, and looking forward to watching our guys get after it here in Texas.
Steve Trout, congrats again to making the dance, and let's go have some fun with it. It'll be a great game tonight. I'll be watching, and I'll stay up late for you, Coach, tonight, because I don't have to get up tomorrow morning, but I'll be watching tonight. Good luck.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
All right, Steve Trout. There it is. All right, let's go to the hotline, because we got college baseball. We got games starting in 2 hours in 4 different regions. It is, I'm assuming, Christmas Day for this guy, because he was a college baseball player. This is a great day. We got 32 different ball games, 64 teams, all day today, starting at 11 a.m. Central Time. Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered, that great entity on digital and on YouTube, and always good to talk to him. CP, how are you, buddy?
Erin, doing well, man. You nailed it. Christmas Day. We were talking about yesterday. It feels like it's opening day 2.0. You know, I recall what I was doing on opening day, of course, back in February, where, you know, I kind of just posted up, kicked my feet up on the couch, maybe cooked some hot dogs, had a couple cold beverages, and watched baseball all day long. I'm probably going to do something pretty similar today. So, no, it's awesome. Everybody's 0-0, and dreams of Omaha, only 8 will get there. We'll see who punches their ticket, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I'm assuming, knowing you and your crew there, you've filled out a bracket. How many SEC teams do you have advancing to Omaha so far?
So far, I've got 4.
Okay.
I've got 4 SEC teams in advance. I've got 7 coming out of the regional round. So I do have a few upsets. Obviously, I think some teams are going to lose. It's a pipe dream to think that all 12 are going to make it. But I think 7 coming out of the regional is a fair number.
Okay.
And I think 3 or 4 getting to Omaha seems like a pretty fair number.
Well, let me start with this, and we'll get to the teams that are hosting. But of the teams that aren't hosting, Tennessee, Arkansas has to go on the road. Oklahoma's going to Georgia Tech. Which of those teams do you think maybe has the best chance to pull the upset and advance to the Supers?
Well, Erin, the one I picked was the Vols. I'm going Tennessee.
Nice.
I think Tennessee in the Chapel Hill Regional, yeah, I like Tennessee a lot. I like their pitching staff a lot, especially if they get Landon Mack back this weekend. Tegan Coons is a real dude. I think that matchup between he and Norby in Game 1 is going to be really special. At least I think that's who they're going with. They may be pitching off, if I actually recall. So I think the other one would be Arkansas. I did go Kansas in that regional, but certainly, you know, I think the Hogs, they'll be coming in with a chip on their shoulder. I know a lot of Arkansas fans will travel up that way. I do think it's going to be a very emotional regional, supercharged regional of emotion from the standpoint of there's been a lot of trash talk this week, and I know Kansas folks are really fired up. The backyard, as they call it, in left field, that'll be rocking and rolling. But I like Tennessee to pull the upset. In regards to the others, I think Ole Miss is one to watch for. And I think the least likely is probably Oklahoma. I don't give Oklahoma much of a shot in the Atlanta regional. I just think Georgia Tech's just way too good. I don't see anybody beating them. And then I think you've got Kentucky is the other one. The 3 seed, of course, I don't see the Cats advancing either, just based on what we saw in the seasons. I'll go Tennessee, most likely to pull the upset. I'll tell you this. Whether it's Tennessee or East Carolina, I think there will be an upset in the Chapel Hill Regional. I'll go as far as to say that. Even if it's not the Vols, I do not think 1 seed North Carolina gets out of there.
Yeah, it's a tough region. East Carolina's got a lot of pedigree at this tournament, and they're right there in the state coming over to North Carolina. Tennessee has been here, new manager, but a lot of national recruits and great players. Texas ran into that up in Knoxville. Chris, okay, so for the 7 teams hosting this weekend in regionals, who is in the most trouble, in your opinion, out of the SEC? Or is there one?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think there certainly is. I think not all of these regionals are built equally. You know, we had this conversation just a couple of days ago about I did some regional superlatives, and most difficult to most manageable. The good news for Texas, obviously, Erin, since we're all talking Texas and your listeners all love Texas, I think that's one of the more manageable regionals. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's easy. I'm not going to use the phrase easy, but I think it is one of the more manageable regionals. I think Auburn got a pretty manageable draw with UCF and NC State, who I saw in Jacksonville, and I think, you know, I don't think Auburn should have much of an issue. You know, I think Alabama's regional is really, really interesting. Trying to think down the list here. I don't think Georgia will have much of an issue here. Florida's is intriguing, right, with Miami, the rival coming in.
Yeah, that's cool.
I know the Gators have a mental edge on them, but I still think that's a high-quality ACC opponent. So, I'm very hesitant to call any regional easy, though, after last year when I said that Florida had kind of a street paved of gold to Omaha when they were in Conway, and I thought the Super set up well, and that just completely blew up in my face. So, yeah, it's they're all difficult to a degree. I think Alabama's – Mississippi State, too, with Cincinnati and Louisiana as the 2 and the 3 seed. I'm a big believer, obviously, in State and Starkville, but, yeah, that one's really, really tricky. I think you could make an argument certainly it is the most difficult, certainly one of the most difficult.
Yeah, Chris, it sounds like you're not ringing too many alarm bells for an Austin regional upset here, but if everything shakes out the way we think, UCSB is pitching off. I think that's a big risk. I think Tarleton State is a team that can really hit the ball, and UCSB doesn't come with a ton of offense. But looking ahead to Saturday, if both of the top-seeded teams win, Dylan Volantis against Jackson Flora. Talk to me about that matchup. I mean, that Jackson Flora is going to be a top 5 pick in this draft. Dylan Volantis is probably going to be a top pick in next year's draft. I mean, how good is that for college baseball, seeing those two arms go against each other? Again, knock on wood, if everything shakes out right, I'll be at the Dish in a couple hours to watch the 1-4 matchup. But talk to us about that potential matchup.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Yeah, Jackson Flora is a guy, you look at draft boards. Heck, I was looking yesterday at a couple different MLB media entity accounts talking about the Twins might take him with the 3rd overall pick. This team might take him with the 4th overall pick. So, yeah, I mean, when you're talking about a guy being a top 5 overall pick, that's a real dude. You know what I mean? So, and we know UCSB, for those of us, I know probably most of us don't watch every single game that the Gauchos play or anything, but it's a really
guilty.
If you like college baseball and you follow it, you know who UC Santa Barbara is, right? This is a very proud program. They've spit out big leaguers before, but yeah, I mean, that's elite on elite. I think what's most fascinating, not just for this series, or not just for this regional, I should say, but across the country is the whole pitching off strategy. There's a lot of teams doing that, I think, going into the weekend. And, I am a believer in it to a degree, but, does it backfire? You mentioned like a Tarleton State. There's going to be a lot of 4 seeds out there that feel very disrespected, or a lot of 3 seeds that feel very disrespected, right? So, does pitching off work? That's first and foremost. Hopefully, I'm pulling for we get the 1-0 matchup, of course, because, again, you're looking at 2 future big leaguers, I think, in Dylan Volantis and Jackson Flora. I mean, Jackson Flora, again, that top 5 pedigree that he's got, and I think Dylan Volantis, surefire first-rounder. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. The good news is this. If you're Dylan Volantis, you're going to have the home crowd behind you, and the good news for Texas lineup is you're going to have your crowd behind you when you're facing them, So there's at least that for you. But, yeah, that's one of those you kind of just sit back and grab your popcorn and enjoy it.
Yeah, I hope we get it. Longhorn fans would rather not see that, and the pitching off strategy doesn't work. But either way, Chris Phillips is with us, SEC Unfiltered. Chris, the Aggies, where are you on? Because I feel like the Aggies had a right to be upset about the draw they got all the way down as a 12 seed after finishing 3rd in the regular season in the SEC and just a half a game back a second. They dropped down to 12, and now they got USC coming to town and Texas State, the Bobcats. We talked to Steve Trout, their manager, their coach last hour. But USC's top 9 RPI team, they're down there. That I feel like A&M got a little bit of a shaft by the committee.
Yeah, Aaron, I do apologize because admittedly I'm driving and did not have the bracket in front of me because you are correct as I pulled it up here.
Yeah.
That was the one that I labeled the toughest regional for any SEC team. That's hosting, I should say.
Yeah.
Because both Anthony Renato and I are picking USC to advance. I'm still nervous. I know I've been saying it all season. Maybe for Aggies fans, if there are any that listen to your station, they're going to be jumping for joy and celebrating because every time we pick against Texas A&M, it does seem like they win. So we'll see if that plays out again. But yeah, I'm the Aiden Sims news is not encouraging, and I would agree with you. I think A&M got a really brutal draw. Now listen, I know USC 1-11 against Q1 opponents. That's what people are going to look at. But, they got some big-time dudes on the bump. This is a legit pitching staff that I think can even tame a lineup as powerful as Texas A&M's. And, I mean, heck, man, you mentioned the rest of that regional. with Texas State as the 3 and Lamar as the 4. I mean, that's a pretty deep regional, but I think USC is the team that comes out of it. Listen, I'm nervous about A&M's pitching staff still. I know what they have in the lineup. I know Bluebell will be rocking, which I think could be one of the factors that swings that in the Aggies' favor. But yeah, it's certainly the committee did them no favors by putting at least USC and Texas State in that regional. So that's going to be one of the more fun ones. And I think for A&M, the question is just going to be this: we know the offense will show up. At least we think we know. Will the pitching do enough? They're kind of like Georgia over the last couple years, where I know you're going to swing it, but can I count on you in the most pivotal moments if you have to go out and win a game 3-2? And you do it. And that just makes me nervous, especially with no Aiden Sims, at least in game 1. We'll see the rest of the weekend, but not an encouraging sign when he's not available today.
That's what our man Ty Harrington said earlier in the show, that if they don't score 5 runs, can they win a ball game? And that's going to be the question, and USC can limit that. Hey, Chris, let me ask you, we had these numbers earlier, and you see it at SEC Unfiltered on your YouTubes, your clicks and all the things. ESPN PR put out a thing that said they had over 1 billion minutes of games coverage consumed on their app, like 1.1 billion minutes of games listened to in college baseball. They're up. Their year-over-year viewership growth at ESPN with college baseball, they said plus 49%, almost half. And I know at SEC Unfiltered, football drives the machine, basketball, but are you seeing that growth within the interest within college baseball, even in your own platform?
Absolutely, Aaron. I mean, I've told many people this. It's been awesome. This year was it's essentially the 3rd year of the existence of SEC Unfiltered, which it feels like much longer than that. It's crazy. But this was also the 3rd season of our baseball show. And this year's been really cool because obviously we've grown year after year. But I mean, this season we've been putting up, Aaron, postseason numbers, I say that quote unquote postseason numbers viewership wise during the regular season. So yeah, I think it's as we've grown, obviously, our audience has grown, but yeah, I think the interest in the game has grown. I think the interest in college baseball has grown. I think one of the things, Aaron, is as weird as it sounds to say, that's really helped the game of college baseball is college football has gotten we've lost the plot a little bit in college football, where college football used to be a sport that consumed the regular season, the off season, the preseason. Like, we just couldn't wait for kickoff, right? And I think for the common fan, it's just my opinion, but I think for the common fan, there's so many issues plaguing the sport. Saturdays are still Saturdays. None of us will ever disagree with that. But there's so many off-season issues that from what I can tell, it becomes a bit exhausting.
Yeah.
To where I think college baseball has become a bit of an escape. Those that love it still love it. They still tune in, they consume it. But I think maybe for some people that were more casuals or even on the fence, they're more like, man, this is such a relief, and this is so much fun compared to all the chatter going on around the sport of college ball. So, maybe I'm wrong, but to me that makes sense, and I do think it's helped draw more eyeballs and interest. And, of course, it's all the other things with the TV products gotten better, the streaming products gotten better. There's more people making content around it, and I think, again, gradually over time, people are starting to see how special the sport is. Also the product on the field, right? I mean, for what NIL and portal has done for the other sports, more talented ball players are coming to college, staying in college. It's only helping the product on the field. And baseball, Aaron, still has a sense of purity, I think, right, wrong, or indifferent, because JUCO was always a thing, right? So, portal doesn't hit as hard in baseball, and the NIL's not as in-your-face overwhelming as it feels in some of the other sports. So there's a lot of different reasons, but to answer your question, Aaron, yeah, we've definitely seen an uptick. This has been our biggest and best season to this point, and just really excited to carry that momentum into the postseason. I'm really grateful, man, every time we take the air, every time we do an event, or every time we go to a game. I'm just so grateful that people love the sport the way that we do. It's really awesome to partake in it and have discourse and banter and, with folks that love it the same way.
Love it, my friend. Great stuff as always, and appreciate you joining us while driving. And you didn't have a bracket in front of you. That's okay. But man, we're excited about this, just like you are. We'll be watching, and we got to do this next week, and we'll know where we are with SEC teams and teams around the country, Longhorns, Aggies, and the rest of the Southeastern Conference. Thank you, my friend. Have a great weekend. I know you will, because it's Christmas morning.
Yeah, best of luck to the Longhorns. And if you're a Texas fan and you're in Austin, get out to the ballpark this weekend. Schloss and the boys need you. So.
Yeah. 100%. There it is. Well, I don't think you're going to have to beg them. They're already lining up outside left field there, starting to consume the cold ones. All right, buddy. Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered. Thank you, man. Have a great weekend.